I'm nerd commentator Frankey Smith.
And I'm entertainment journalist Tyler Coates.
And as always, we are joined by comic correspondent and comic book expert Coy Jandro.
And I am stoked to be here.
Amazing. And welcome to the DC Studios Showcase presented by Max. Here we dissect and we talk about all the latest and greatest from DC Studios. And we have a jam-packed episode today. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too.
We're talking Harley Quinn season 5. We have Katie Rich, who's the EP, the writer, the voice actor from the newest Harley Quinn series and from Kite Man. We're also talking about Coy's favorite, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And Tyler, I heard you have a game for us.
I have a little game. I hope it's not too hard.
It will be. But let's get started. Harley Quinn, if you can't tell by my impeccable outfit, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited for this new season coming out. What do you know about the show?
I knew nothing about the show. I didn't even know it existed, which is kind of bad.
It's not bad. You're a civilian.
That's
we all
true,
know.
yeah. But I know who Harley Quinn is. I've seen Birds of Prey, Suicide Squad. I know like the Margot Robbie performance, also Joker, Folie à Deux with Lady Gaga. So I know who the character is. I've seen at least 2 interpretations.
Okay.
But then, obviously I've watched the first 2 episodes of the show. So
you're like,
I know what I'm working with here.
Those are all so very different interpretations.
Yeah.
I think she's a very interesting character because she's basically like Urkel, like someone who was one off, in Batman the Animated Series. And then she just evolved into this like feminist icon that we see today, and I love her. Coy, what was the first comic book that she was introduced into?
So she was on the animated series, as you said, that original Bruce Timm 90s animated series, and then she very quickly got put in the animated series adaptation of the comic, and it wasn't long until she was full-on comic book canon, and that's pretty unprecedented to go from an adaptation of a comic and retroactively be put into the comic canon. And now, as you said, she's an actual pop culture icon, but there's very few things chicken and the egg that way, where it starts in the animated series, becomes a comic book character. And speaking of what you were saying about this show being unique, this is my fiance's favorite DC thing, and I think it's because it's so approachable and different, and it gives nerds little sprinkles of more, but it's just such a good show.
It gives us a lot of sprinkles. Like, if we were to sit down and go through an episode of Harley Quinn show, frame by frame, there's at least 10 Easter eggs for people who read comics, but it's so hidden and discreet that, to your point, you can enjoy it, your fiance can enjoy it, and you don't feel like it's being shoved down your throat.
I mean, obviously, I did not recognize those Easter eggs. They're not for me, but I love sitcoms, and this is just kind of an animated sitcom.
Yeah. Like, even myself, I've watched things where I'm like, I know I'm missing something here. We're like, like they're like to the camera doing that, but I feel like in this sitcom, you don't feel that way.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, so she started kind of in the 90s?
So in 1992 was her first appearance in the Batman animated series on TV in the show.
Okay.
And within months, she was in Batman Adventures, which is a comic book adaptation of the show. So that's non-canon. The Batman comic book based off the show is considered Batman canon.
Got it.
But then it was only 6 years later, 6.5, in early 99, she was already in the Batman comics at that point. So that's unprecedented speed to go from one medium to another. So between 92 and 99, she evolved into comic book canon.
Yeah, she's younger than me, technically.
She is actually
25 years, actually, since comic canon.
She's
like
20, so she's younger than me, too. So now I'm not the youngest person out here.
We've never traded actual ages. I don't think
we'll
we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We'll keep that
we can reveal Harley Quinn's age, but for us, who knows? We're timeless.
Yeah.
But DC is very unique, and they do that quite often, Coy, what you were talking about, where they don't limit characters to people that are presented in the comic books. They are not afraid to introduce new characters and then retroactively make them canon.
Okay.
In the Arrow show, historically, there was a character named John Diggle. He was like super fucking cool. They said, let's put him in the comics.
Okay.
Harley Quinn is one of them. In Young Justice, which I think you'd really like as well, they have Aqualad. And he also like started off in Young Justice. He was cool. He looked like Cisco.
Okay. Thong Song, yeah.
Thong Song.
Yeah.
Does he not look like
does,
Cisco?
I never put that together. Unleash the Dragon, Aqualad.
Yeah, he wears red. Yeah, but he also started off in an animated series, and now he's in the comics.
Okay.
So that I love that fluidity about DC, that they're able to be like, here, showrunner, like, write a character, make up a character if you want, and if people respond to it, they'll be like, well, let's give you more.
Yeah, they're less bound to like rules.
Exactly. Yeah, there are no. And Harley Quinn show for sure.
Yeah,
does not have any rules. And what I like about the show is it feels like it's the real world if we had superheroes.
Right. They're just walking
way?
amongst us.
Yes,
doing
exactly.
the stupid stuff that we have to do.
Exactly.
I feel like these are the superheroes that invoice. We've talked about this.
Yes.
Like, do you get paid for the work that you do? How do you
do
yeah,
it?
Are you on a W-2 or are you W-9? What's the deal?
Yes. So yeah, like there are definitely corporations.
Not to get into like tax brackets.
That's part of the show. Like
that's actually a part of the show.
Yeah. Okay.
They're like, where do you live? Like, you know, housing is a big part of it. The Legion of Doom is an actual corporation, like ran by Lex. They have like social media, PR.
Okay.
Even one of Harley Quinn's allies, she's able to get him early, even though he was a big villain, because he got canceled. He called Wonder Woman a bad name.
Okay.
On live.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that they really bring in that corporate aspect, and it makes it feel like so real.
Yeah.
While doing like some really bold things. There are characters like Darkseid and stuff like that would never interact with Harley Quinn, and she takes them down.
All right.
Yeah. But Poison Ivy is also a character.
Yeah.
What do you know about her?
I remember Poison Ivy from, it was Batman and Robin, right? That
yes, this is my favorite Batman film
Okay.
of all time.
I was a Batman Forever, but we'll
that's
talk
an
about
episode.
it.
I'd actually love to have that episode
Yeah.
where we all break down our favorite Batman and why. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
Batman Forever's soundtrack rocks.
Oh,
I'm just
no
gonna
notes.
That is no notes. I do
Yeah.
agree.
But no, I mean, I remember Uma Thurman playing her and that. But I, again, like I don't know the nuts and bolts of all these people.
Yeah.
So but I love the idea of like, are they roommates?
No, they're in love. They're in love, and they
Okay.
have a really good relationship as well. It's funny. This is animated, but she's actually way more serious than Uma Thurman is.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Lake Bell has that.
Lake Bell is so like her voice is so sincere and earnest. There's comedy
Yeah.
in it, but it's so rooted. And she's my favorite Poison Ivy. No disrespect to Uma Thurman, but
Right.
the way this show feels, it makes Poison Ivy makes me appreciate her more in all the mediums. Like I think Poison Ivy in the comics is better for having Lake Bell play her.
I think
like
so,
it
too.
enhances the experience because Poison Ivy is, in my opinion, one of the most nuanced versions of what bad is because her goal is to save the planet, which we as humans are killing. So she's an eco-terrorist.
She's an eco-terrorist.
At
yeah.
what cost?
But heavy on the terrorist part. Like
Yeah,
she's
of
not an
course.
anti-hero.
No,
she's for
she's
sure
bad.
a villain.
She's blowing people up.
But in the comics, it's really cool because she'll have issues like the current run right now from G. Willow Wilson is my favorite Poison Ivy ever. It's only like 27 issues in, really approachable, but it focuses on her morality and what she really believes and wants. And Harley's always this anchor of like, well, humanity can't be all that bad. And she builds out this friend group of like Killer Croc and all these people that are misunderstood, but she's still doing active crime.
Right.
But you really get where she's coming from. And the show, I feel like, is the yin to the yang of that, where like it uses comedy to bring serious things to light, and then the comic can be super serious, and they both feed off each other really uniquely with Poison Ivy.
Yeah. And like, even though we were in season 5 of the Harley Quinn show, Poison Ivy is very closed off. She's very guarded with her feelings, with her backstory. And just like Harley, we don't know much about her.
Okay.
And this season, it looks like we're finally going to get her backstory because we start the show off knowing what Harley's motivation is. She's very open about her past and like what really motivates her. But when it comes to Poison Ivy, it's like pulling teeth. The tidbits that we do get out is by necessity, by need. And so what seems like, do we want to call him the big bad?
I was going to say, we talked about this before, and I hadn't even put together that element of her being reserved as to why it's season 5 before this reveal, but I'd say it's fair to say, at this point, perceived big bad. This is her origin this deep into a show, and with your experience like in pop culture broadly, I think it's pretty unique to have the co-lead of a show get their origin 5 seasons in.
Oh yeah, that's sort of unheard of. I mean, usually you want everyone to know who your main characters are pretty much immediately.
You don't notice it because
it's so well written.
We're spending season 1 watching Harley kind of find herself and develop, right? So we're not focusing on who Poison Ivy is. And then season 2, we watch their romance blossom. So again, we don't need it. And then from 3, we're watching them both develop. 3 and 4, they're developing as couples, finding out who they are individually and together. And so now it's like, wait, do I even know you?
Right.
And I feel like they understand that, like, that question is starting to come up, like, what makes her special, what makes her, what gives her so much resolve.
Right. I mean, it's possible to be in a relationship with someone for 5 years before you
Yeah, absolutely.
learn something new about them.
Absolutely.
And that's how it felt to me. I was like, I feel like I've known you and I'm discovering something. I love that we obviously know she has an origin, but not having seen it, I didn't put together because I read the comics. But for you, if you had watched it all the way through, you might not have noticed you didn't know where that came from. And Woodrow is such a essential part of her story, and I didn't feel the lack of it because, as you said, we are focused on Harley's relationship. And Woodrow, I think of as a Swamp Thing villain or a Swamp Thing character.
Who is Woodrow?
Yeah, I don't know Woodrow.
So Dr. Woodrow is the reason Poison Ivy is Poison Ivy.
Like why she's green, or
like
why
she got her
bakes with
powers.
flowers.
Dr. Pamela Isley was trying to prove herself to him. He was an emotional manipulator. He was someone that wanted to steal her identity as well as her inventions and all the things that made her proud. And she was a college student just trying to prove herself. And the events that led to her origin are directly related. I don't want to give anything away, but the events that led to her becoming Poison Ivy are at his fault. So if he's not the big bad of the season, he's very much the big bad of Poison Ivy. She wouldn't be destroyed if not for Woodrow. And he's a Swamp Thing villain to me, which is cool because it builds the world out of the green and this connection to Earth. And it makes more than just
big
Gotham.
words. Who's the Swamp Thing? What's the green?
So
He's just dropping.
I have an idea what Swamp
jargon.
Thing. The Swamp Thing is like all in the name. I got
He is
that.
a
The
Swamp
context
Thing.
clues.
Yeah.
So the green is the concept of everything nature on the planet. The green is like this ethereal, spiritual, supernatural, humanity averse God of what nature should be and what we are destroying, like how things can be good, and it taps into all things on the planet. So Swamp Thing is like a hallucinogenic mind trip of what we could be if we were good, because he's part human, but he's been evolved through this horrible situation that we're going to get to in the James Mangold. Hopefully he makes the film. But that whole situation is going to be in live action. But what I love is that we all know Poison Ivy and we now know Woodrow, but it all ties into a greater story with Swamp Thing and the green and stuff that is to come.
Swamp Thing is also in the show.
Okay.
And he's played by Sam Richardson.
Oh, I love Sam Richardson.
I know you love him.
Yeah.
And he's like a hipster, like very green. He has a little man bun.
Okay.
But it's what is that called? Algae?
Yeah.
Seagrass?
Yeah.
He's like made out of seagrass.
Okay.
And I really love this interpretation because they're both supposed to be socially conscious people, even though they, murder.
Yeah. A little antisocial at the same time.
Their people are the grass and the green. So like they're murdering people who they feel like are against who they advocate. Yes, I think so.
I mean, most villains are doing it because they think someone deserves it. But,
right?
Yeah.
Some villains just like do it because for the fun of it.
Well, yeah, the anarchy, the chaos.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. I think hearing about Poison Ivy's backstory, a lot of women getting fucked over in the DCU.
I think that's a trope that's very common that you'll find in the comic book genre.
Yeah.
For a very long time, women weren't really included, with the exception of like cannon fodder and stuff like that. And I think a way of like correcting that and developing all these characters that, including Harley Quinn, was created for like a male character.
Yeah, like
they put it in the story.
Yeah.
So even with like what we're seeing with Poison Ivy, when she goes back to Swamp Thing and talks to him, it's all about like, who am I as a woman? Womanhood is just a through line we see with her and with Harley. And I think some of it is DC recognizing like women historically, even these characters are sexualized, used in ways
second to the men that they have a relationship with. Yeah.
And you feel like a pride with them when you see them.
Yeah.
And it's clear, I mean, we'll have Katie in a bit, but it's clear that women are writing it and they understand and connect with these characters. So even when they're making jokes, they're funny and they're very rooted in like, it's hard to be a woman.
Yeah.
You know?
I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard. It's allegedly.
Yeah,
I don't know,
some might say.
I heard men are having it really tough right now.
It's okay.
I want to call out your rooted pun and give it credit because I don't know if it was intentional, but rooted in that truth.
Yeah.
I think Poison Ivy empowering that overcoming her being that character when she might have been originally written, and how she's just a Batman villain who is evil for hurting, but now it's the reflection of what billionaire Bruce Wayne has probably done to hurt the planet, and now his villain is someone that just wants to heal the planet. So who's it right and wrong here? And I really love that she uses sexuality as something that a dumb man falling over his knees for. Like there's a taking back your power element to Poison Ivy, where she's taking back power from the planet. She's using sexuality for dumb men. The character I mentioned, Woodrow, he wrongs her and her power is overcoming him. And I think that is absolutely a trope, but I love when writers can make that a strength and fix the wrongs of a past decade.
I mean, I have to say, I always connected with the lady villains the most.
Right?
Like Catwoman. Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman was like
particularly
game changing for me.
I loved her outfit, honestly. Me personally, I love Poison Ivy in Batman and Robin. Like I said, that's my favorite film. The fashion in that, I don't think that this Poison Ivy is as fashionable as Uma Thurman, with the exception of every season they have a gala to go to. Okay. And they be having that shit on. I love
it. Is it the same like annual gala, or is it like it's a different charity?
Things. Yeah. Because it's, like I said, it's like rooted in the real world, and the Legion of Doom, the villains, are part of a corporation. And coming with that is like fundraisers and things like that. Award shows, like they try to get best villain couple at one time. And I love the character design and how they understand the characters so well. And so every time I know there's going to be a gala episode, I'm always like, man, I want to see what they're wearing. And it's always totally different, but it's always like an homage to their original character. So Harley will always wear a red or a black dress that's like sexy and playful. Poison Ivy will always wear something that makes you feel more earthy, more like grounded. She'll wear different colors, but all of it will remind you of like flowers and stuff like that. Right. And I could just like see the board of them like being like, well, she would never wear this. She'd wear her hair
what's her season? Is she a spring or a autumn?
She's an autumn. Okay. Well, I don't know shit about seasons.
She was like color. Yeah, it's florals. Like I don't know it well either. It's like a very kind of like 70s, 80s thing.
Well, she's about like, rebirth, right? So I'd imagine spring. She's green.
She got jewel
to bring back.
Yeah, jewel tone. Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I should. I shouldn't know that. But
I was like, why would you?
Why
know
would
that?
I? Just another thing to file away on this encyclopedia.
But one day you'll be talking to someone randomly about the Harley Quinn show, and you can ask them like, "What's your favorite gala outfit?" Okay. And they were like, "Oh, this guy knows his stuff." But let's talk more about womanhood and stuff. And as I mentioned before, we got Katie here.
Katie Rich.
I'm so excited. So let's bring her on and let's talk about this show, because I think she'll be able to give you some more insight into it. Please welcome Harley Quinn, executive producer, writer, voice actor, fellow big girl. We're tall, big girls.
And we're proud of it.
Katie Rich, welcome.
Thank you so much. This is awesome.
I'm so excited you're here.
I know Tyler, secret. We know each other.
I used to see her perform improv 2 decades ago.
Now look at you both.
In 1965, we used to, many years ago in Chicago. But it's wonderful. It's wonderful to be here. This is awesome. Thank you.
We're excited to have you here. I am a huge Harley Quinn fan. Yay. And I talked to you earlier, but you're funny and you have so many hats in this world.
Too many hats.
You did a lot of work in this newest season coming up.
Yes. Season 5.
Season 5. What drew you to the DC world in general?
Well, they offered me a job, and in that sense, that was number one. No. You know, I wasn't a big, like, Marvel versus DC thing, because to me, it's like Greek and Roman mythology, right? It's like you pull from each other. And so I'm not like a huge proponent of that necessarily. I'm a Cubs fan and a White Sox fan. Okay, so that gives you a vibe.
I'm a Yankees fan.
Who I am. Well, that's okay. You guys, I think you'll get your break someday.
Yeah.
I forgot what happened to us.
Yeah. You'll know what it's like to win someday. But when I was little, if a girl, we had girl comics. You know, you would have like Archie, or like you had girl comics and then there were boy comics, and my brother had boy comics, and I would be like, these are kind of cool. And then when I was little, it was 1989 when Batman came out. Yep. And Batman, that's, you know, when we were kids, like every summer there was one thing that you did, and that's all anyone did. And it was Batman came out with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, and it was like every cup you drank out of was Batman, every shirt you wore was it was just Batman was everything. And so I think that sort of tipped me a little bit towards DC. And I think too, working on DC properties, they're kind of the iconic superheroes, right? So there's a shorthand there when you say like, do you know Superman or you know Batman? And then like someone who has no interest in comics or no, they're like, oh yeah, I get it. So there's it's nice to have that shorthand too of like, this is the world that I work in. It's not as niche as I think some things in comedy and stuff like that.
I don't think so. I think Harley Quinn now is iconic.
Well, now she's huge. Exactly.
Yeah, and I love that you started with Batman because she also starts with Batman. Her first appearance was on that show.
Yep.
What did you think about the animated world of the Harley Quinn show?
Justin Halpern, who's one of the creators of this version of Harley, he always describes it as if Mary Tyler Moore was a psychopathic murderer. And what I love about this version of Harley is that it's all about the relationships. The show starts in the pilot episode of it where she's like, goodbye, Joker. And she's like, who am I without this person? And so it focuses more on relationships, and it also focuses on the banality of life, in a way that we don't get to always see with these supercharged by design stories, right? So you get Bane going to Jamba Juice and they spell his name wrong. And it's Bane, so he's going to explode the Jamba Juice, whereas you or I would just, be mad for the day.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I loved about it, is this juxtaposition between she can build a highway that's a roller coaster, but also she can be upset when they put onions on her sandwich when she didn't want it.
When you say that she's sort of a Mary Tyler Moore, does that mean Ivy is her Rhoda?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because I also think they didn't know that they wanted to be together on Mary Tyler Moore. And if
Fair
that
enough,
had gone on longer, maybe they would have been together.
What Mary Tyler
See, this is my
is.
job explaining to the youth. So Mary Tyler Moore, the famous actor, had an incredible sitcom. She wasn't the first woman to have her own sitcom, but it really...
No, but it's kind of the...
but it was like a feminist,
Yes.
Landmark because she was a reporter, right?
Yeah, and she was like, she's going to be in the big city. She wasn't married. She didn't have children. It was just, I want to try this on my own.
Yeah.
And that was if you think, there's a iconic, she like throws her hat up, and the theme song is, we're going to make it after all.
Yeah. And
I've
then
seen
Rhoda.
references.
So you know
Yeah.
the references.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
and then Rhoda is her roommate.
Yes.
/ kind of
Is
like...
it roommate or...
Well, not
is it
then.
like-
Oh, no.
Not
They were
then,
they were
like-
platonic,
Yes.
just two gals sharing expenses in
Exactly.
the old-fashioned way.
It wasn't a Boston marriage.
Yeah,
It was-
exactly. But I think that again, like an archetypal
Yes.
female friendship that I think
Yes.
like then we started seeing replicated across television and movies. I feel like in Romeo and Michelle they have the argument over who's the
my
Mary,
favorite movie.
who's the Rhoda.
I'm the
because,
Mary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes more sense because I have seen Romeo.
There you go. Yeah.
With Harley Quinn, to me, she's one of my favorite characters of all time, like uniquely poised to always carve her own path. Like I consider her power being emancipated from expectation, whether it's starting as someone in Stockholm Syndrome with Mr. J, or starting on a TV show and then emancipating herself into the medium of comics, or retroactively putting herself in canon. One of the movies is called Emancipation of. To me, Harley Quinn's power is to carve her own identity. What do you think it is that makes people relate to her in such a way that she literally overcomes mediums and expectations?
First of all,
You do have a PhD, right? In media
That's why they give me
studies?
the computer so I can like feel studious.
did you practice that? Because
It came to me.
That's how Coy talks.
I'm so sorry.
that was so good.
No notes.
He
I'm just-
actually doesn't say
That was incredible, and nothing I say will. That's like when the setup to a joke is better than the punchline. So I don't know how good my answer will be. But one thing I will say about Harley is that she has this dichotomy where she is like, she's pure id in a lot of ways, and there's so much rage and anger and trauma, but she's optimistic. There's this joy in what she's doing. And we don't get to see that depicted in female characters a lot, is where we get to tap into that rage, but that's not who we are entirely.
Right.
So I think there's a complexity to her that you don't necessarily get to see a lot in characters of that type. I don't know what your question was now that I'm saying because it was so well done.
The mediums are usually so part of who the character is. Like if you debut on a show versus debuting in a comic, it becomes part of your identity. And I've always seen her as something.
Oh, I see. You're talking about the crossing like movies and
I'm talking about both. Like what anchors the human being that is us to find ourselves in her to such a level that it doesn't matter in what experience we're seeing her, whether it's directing the panels between the comics or experiencing someone's telling of her through their writing or seeing a live action story of her. She's always Harley to us, and it's always so true and real. Like, what do you think that anchor is?
I think in the end, she really is just looking for love. I think she has a lot of love to give. And I think she just wants to be able to give and receive that. And she's so fucked up that she can't quite do it right. But every once in a while she does. And I feel like that's what we all do, right? Is we're just trying to be loved and figure out how we can also love. And that is just who she is at the crux of her character. And that also transcends a physical, words on a page, a movie. I think that's what it is, because you can give a character all the powers in the world, but if you can't distill it into some sort of humanity, then it doesn't have the staying power, and it doesn't have the power to change along with how the times change, And so I think that's the main thing of her, is that she has this deep need to just love and be loved. And unfortunately, the circumstances in her life are preventing that from happening. So that's why I think she really appeals to so many people.
I love that.
And they do such a good job of still making it very funny. Like the Harley Quinn show, all the storylines are so very complex and meta. And then you see something like, Bane blowing up a Jamba Juice, or like something. I'm like,
a victimless crime, by the way.
Jamba
he
Juice
was right. And
also,
also, Jamba Juice, they fooled us all into saying it was healthy, and it was not.
Are they not healthy?
What's wrong with you?
It's like 3,000 calories.
This morning I saw you with a juice.
No, I didn't. I had a protein shake. But I know what you're saying. Yes. Like, I think you almost buy her heightened. Yeah. And you buy her having to go to Kohl's because there's a sale. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think sometimes with Superman is a hard character because there's so many ultimate things about him that can be hard to relate to sometimes. And it's, how do you depict it
in a human way?
I mean,
or
he's
in a
not.
comic way too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like, how is that funny? What is funny about him? And there's just something so funny about Harley because she represents id. She represents id that also is so brilliant, knows the super ego as well. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're seeing her in real time fight with those two sides of herself.
Well, she's also like a psychological
genius
professional. I mean, like that's her background.
And I've always said that that's like, to me, that's the most interesting thing about her too, is that she can look at you and size you up right away. And so don't you want to see her do that with Superman?
Okay, when's the last time you went to space for fun? I mean, Metropolis may not need Superman, but you know who does? Superman. Wow, you are so toned.
There's that amazing, my friend Jameson, he wrote this amazing episode in season 3 where she taps into Batman. The story we've seen every time. Your parents got shot. We know. That's why you do everything. Blah, blah, blah. And like she taps into that part of him because she's uniquely equipped to do that.
And she reads him to filth. That's my favorite.
Of course she does. And it's, so I think her ability to understand humanity is also what keeps her just so iconic in so many ways.
How much, I don't want to ask how much you're allowed to make fun of these characters and like poke fun at exactly like what the core of who Batman is. I mean, I have always said, I don't need to see his parents die again. Like,
honey,
I get it.
We get it.
We get it. Your parents are dead.
Your parents are dead. Big deal. My mom's dead. I didn't bring that up in this interview.
Wow. You really brought it down, Katie.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
You're voice acting on this show as well, right?
Yes, we do. Like, I think sometimes, certain times, sometimes you're just like, oh, I can just do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just because I am an actor, and so there'll be. I don't do any like huge. Although I do this one that I'm kind of excited that I get to do, but I don't want to reveal anything. But yeah, I'll do like little stuff here and there. Yeah.
I mean, as a writer, you kind of performing as you write these characters too.
Like it's a lot of me like doing the voices of the character, you know, like
pacing around your house
as you're writing them.
It's kind of fun, and you're like, and then she's like, "What are you talking about?" You know, like I have like, you know, you have your like Lake Bell impression, and you know everybody has their Bane, and my Bane is Lord Michael. Like I can't help it; it's Lord Michael's. But wait,
can I hear you Bane real quick?
I just did it. It's always, you know, like it's Lorne. Like my Bane is Lorne. But wait, you were gonna ask something about. You were like, I can't see Batman's parents die again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, how much you're allowed to kind of poke fun at.
Yeah. So what's interesting with Harley, and then especially with Kite Man, which was the spinoff of Harley, is DC is a lot less precious about their villains than their heroes, right? So, and especially when you're dealing with a character that's like Kite Man, like there's nothing. Who gives a shit?
I like Kite Man.
Of course,
I'm the guy's
I get this shit. I love
but I'm saying the character, like, you know what I mean? It's like I think the less backstory that they have, then you can kind of create it. But also, you're never making fun of them because we love them. But it's like there's so much comedy in these villains, and so I think to answer that, it's like. They're a lot less precious about the bad guys.
Do you ever go on like Reddit or Twitter to see what we're saying about the characters? Because sometimes I feel like when I'm watching the shows like Kite Man or the Harley Quinn show, I'm like, how do they know what we're saying about these characters? Like the jokes we make about these characters and their personality.
You know, I don't a ton, but some of the guys do. I don't like while we're. I really try to stay away from it while we're creating it. But then there's something really lovely of like if you see a thread and somebody brings something up and you're like, oh, they're gonna be so happy.
I've always wondered. I always see Batman's rogues, and speaking of his villains, as kind of the mirror to his psychology. Like the way he loves Gotham is how Mr. Freeze loves Nora, and the way that Two-Face would be him if there was the political ambition of who he is as the White Knight, and the Joker is the chaos to his order. Like they're all like the psychological schisms of the broken mind of Bruce Wayne. To me, Harley Quinn is the joy on the other side of the psychology of if he actually went to therapy. How often do you guys think about the psychology of the villains as you're making fun of them?
I mean, I'm gonna now, I guess.
I was going to ask you about the dresses.
Yeah, like, can we go back to the clothes?
Yeah, the dresses is safer. That's fair. That's fair.
What's your favorite dress?
All right, what?
So I feel the villains are all inversions of Bruce Wayne's psyche and how it's broken. So his love of Gotham that's never requited is Nora to Mr. Freeze.
Oh, this is your philosophy.
Yeah.
This is some bullshit.
It's my own thing.
No, I get
think
it.
the dresses might have more substance than my own bullshit.
No, it's not. I know what you're saying. Yes, I see what you're saying. But and so you're saying like, well, okay.
I'm wondering how often the conversation about the psychology of the villains is used to find the humor, because all humor is coming from a place of like their specificity.
Got it. Okay. Yes. So I think one thing that, and again, like I didn't start on this show like this, you know, so I'm not taking credit for this. But one thing that I think Harley Quinn, the animated series, does so well is that they found so like every character has a wound, right? But they found a way to extrapolate that into everyday things, as opposed to just like, my parents died, so I'm going to have to become a vigilante so no one dies again. And you're like, okay, well, that's a big one. But it's also like, well, what happens if someone breaks up with you? Like, how are you going to act? And so speaking of their psychology, I think what this show does so well is it brings their psychology below the superhero aspect of it and brings it more into the like daily life of their psychology. So I think one thing that is so fun about our Bane is that he is created. Bane is a genius. Bane is a genius, and he is treated like absolute dog shit because everyone's like, "Shut up, Bane," you know. And it's so funny because he's like, "But I'm right," you know. And so it's just so funny. I think especially it's unexpected. It's an unexpected way for these characters to function in the real world.
That totally answers my question because I've always wondered.
I did?
Yeah, you did.
Because the chicken or the egg, like I've always wondered if you use the character to make the story, if you use the story to make the character, and it sounds like you use the characters to shape the narrative as opposed to the other way because you know their wound. So I've always wondered, like, what is the element that launches the idea for each arc? Because the arcs
an element of story will never work if it's not based in something emotional. When the story comes out of the emotions of the characters, it's always going to be richer and it's always going to feel more real. So I come from a sketch comedy background, which is where you almost always start with a character. And so because these characters are so defined in a way, we always are like, well, you know, you dive into the season and saying like, well, what is the emotional arc of the character? And then that's how you build the season.
It shows it. I feel it. It's amazing.
I mean, I kind of describe it as a sitcom, and like
it is a sitcom.
Yeah, and like it's just
there just happens to be like murder and explosions.
I mean, my favorite kinds of sitcoms when asked. But no, I mean, but I think like I think great comedies are not to reduce it to a formula, but I think that like a character is defined by like one kind of insane thing, and especially some of the best sitcoms, I think, in my opinion, the characters are incredibly stupid. And I think that that's what makes it. They don't know they're stupid. And they don't know that each other's stupid.
No.
And so like watching the folly of their lives.
Yes.
But they're not. The best part is they're all insanely smart.
Yeah.
In the
yeah,
Harley
but they're
Quinn show.
insane. That's
but
the thing.
All
yeah.
the insanely is the.
But what you're bringing up is that the best sitcom is when the characters have a clear want, and the want can be a basic. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. In fact, the less complicated it is, the more universal it is. And so, it's just watching them see how they get their want. And the difference. One of the challenges with comedy too is that the characters can't change too much. If the characters change too much, then they're not the character we fell in love with, and it doesn't feel right because people don't really change that much.
Then it's a drama.
Correct. So it's how do you find a way to keep it interesting and moving them forward without changing the thing that we love about them? And that's kind of the challenge with Harley. But I think the thing that we've kind of cracked, and that's why it's been able to go as long as it has.
Because she's grown so much. Like
she has.
Look at it, and it's so great to see that type of journey. To your point, post breakup, and to pull yourself away from this famous man, and to be like, I'm talented. I love the corporate aspect of the legions of villains and stuff, and what it would be like being a woman who's associated with this man who's trying to make a name for themselves. You know what I mean? Do you ever feel that pressure, particularly in this season where Harley is starting again a totally new thing? Did you feel that pressure of keeping her true to herself but also trying to put her on a new journey again?
100%. Yeah. Our thinking was at this point, we've said many times, Harley and Ivy aren't going to break up. We don't want it to be,
I love that.
Because that's also doesn't ring true.
Right.
That's a oh no, are they no, they're not. They love each other. They're each other's soulmates. We're not interested in that. We've seen that. What's more interesting is how does this couple keep going and so that's kind of where we started with season 5 was so they're actually doing well and so what does a healthy relationship look like between these two
kind of unhealthy people.
These two psychotic people, and that's what we wanted to explore, and so that's what season 5 addresses is what happens, what would Harley do if things were going well?
Gotham City's bestest, most titillatingest, most excitingest couple are going to the Big Apple.
It's the Big Apricot.
We're going to the Big Apricot.
Tyler, you'd love this, but there's a Valentine's episode of the Harley Quinn show, and they show like, you know, Superman and Lois. They show all these couples that are very famous, and they highlight that they have that Harley and Ivy are the only like actual, you know, good relationship that's like healthy.
Right.
And I think it's so very important. I knew once they didn't break up when Harley became a good guy and Poison Ivy became like the head of the villains. I was like, this is healthy. I couldn't imagine like even dating a Red Sox fan, like what that would be like.
Well, first
you know
of all,
what I mean?
don't do that.
Why would I do that? I know Coy's from Boston.
I am from Boston.
We can't go too crazy on the Sox. But
No, I'm just kidding. But it is like that. But that is real. Like, your partner isn't gonna be exactly like you. Your partner is gonna, you know, and it's like, well, how do you do that? And I thought that was a great metaphor for relationships.
Yeah.
Ivy's in the Legion of Doom, and Harley's in the Bat Family. What does that look like? And so I think it's just you're using a heightened reality to shed light on our reality.
Yeah. How does animation as a medium play into that? Like, does it allow like less boundaries, less constraints because you can kind of do whatever you want?
Yeah, I mean, you can't do like whatever you want because it is still like it still like costs money.
Yeah.
But obviously with animation you can really do that sitcom thing of like everything just resets the next day.
Right.
So like when the Gotham blows up, it's like it's fine the next day.
Yeah.
But it's also like, you know, I think animation makes harsh things a little more palatable. So when Harley's beating someone to death, it's funny.
Yeah.
As opposed to maybe if we saw that,
It'd be a little tragic.
It would be a little exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it also makes simple things a little more poetic and beautiful because it's this lovely painting almost of. So I love animation, and animation is just so incredibly collaborative and beautiful. And so the people that we work with are so incredibly talented, and they do so much. Like, they're so funny. Like, I'll watch a cut and they'll put like, they're called marquee jokes. Like The Simpsons has a ton of them where it's like, it's just like what's on the billboard.
Yeah.
And you're like, that wasn't in the script. And it's so funny. Like, so there's a lot of writing that happens in the animation too.
Oh, wow. I never thought about that.
Yeah. Where like a character will just be on their phone and then they drop their phone on their face. And like that wasn't in the script. They did that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Katie.
Oh my God, this has been so much fun. Jury's out on you, but no,
And the Boston
It's the
reveal
Boston
again.
no,
thing. It was definitely-
your questions were. This was the best.
Well, we love your show.
Yay! Thank
We love your
you.
show. And you guys can catch, I'm going to say Kite Man too. Definitely
Yes,
check
ma'am.
out
Hell
Kite
yeah.
Man. And you can watch Harley Quinn on Max.
Yes.
And we cannot wait to see what you have in store for us this
New
season.
season.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. This is the best.
I love Katie Rich.
I know.
You have no idea.
She's funny.
Yeah.
I could tell that connection. I was like, man, I want to be her friend too.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about Supergirl, Women of Tomorrow.
I've seen the original Supergirl movie from the 80s.
Okay.
Faye Dunaway.
Okay.
Which is sort of like, I would say a cult classic to a very specific cult. Gay guys, basically.
There's a
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, like, that was so long ago, so I don't really know who she is. I don't remember much about that movie.
Okay, well, good. Well, because this is totally new,
Yeah,
and I
it's
think
new.
that this is a great way to kind of be introduced to the character. We don't know much about the film, but I heard Coy let us know that it's actually based on Supergirl Women of Tomorrow, the comic book.
Okay.
So Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is one of my all-time favorite comics in the world. It's only an 8-issue series. You don't need to have read other continuity. You don't need to read all of Supergirl. You can pick this up with issue 1. It is written by Tom King, illustrated by Bilquis Evely, and the style of art is like a portraiture mixed with sci-fi space opera, and there's swashbuckling elements. So it's this really intense story of Supergirl who, unlike Clark Kent, who was raised on a farm, when Krypton blew up for him, he was a baby. He doesn't remember Krypton. Whereas Kara Zor-El, she remembers her family. She's from the House of El and grew up with it, so she actually has that loss. So I've always seen them as like a nature versus nurture. He got nurtured by Smallville. She grew up on an asteroid and literally has none of that exposure. So the socialization's different, but what's beautiful is she turned that into a strength. So when this story takes place, there's a young girl who loses her whole family and she vows revenge on this man, Krem of the Yellow Hills. And she vows to kill this man, but Supergirl encounters her and says, no, she wants to take on that burden. Like, let me carry the weight of murder. I will kill this man for you. So they go on this noble quest across the cosmos, and on that journey you meet different alien races. The whole thing's very like vibrant and technicolor, and the art mixed with the writing. Tom King is an ex-CIA operative. He writes very intense. And then you've got this lush, beautiful art. So that juxtaposition really fills out who I see Supergirl as. And this one story being so contained, but such a grandiose story, I think is a great way for people that don't know Supergirl to realize all of the differences from Clark and why his cousin is in some ways a more approachable character, because who amongst us hasn't been lost in a fit of rage and has to find their grounding?
Yeah, and wants to murder.
Sometimes you gotta murder.
You've never wanted to murder someone?
Oh, there are plenty of people.
You know?
Yeah, but I haven't acted out on it.
Right, and so that's the point. That's the point. Like, she's like, I'll do it for you.
I mean, it sounds sort of, it reminds me of True Grit.
Very.
Yeah, except that, instead of Rooster Cogburn, I think Cogburn, played by Jeff Bridges or John Wayne, it's Supergirl.
Supergirl.
I love that.
And Millie Alcock. Is that how you say your name?
Millie Alcock? Yeah, I think so. From House of the Dragon.
Yes, from House of she's Rhaenyra Targaryen. She's playing Supergirl.
Okay.
And it's honestly a perfect casting.
You're happy with that casting?
I think so.
Yeah.
From her small stature to your point, Coy, like that being juxtaposed with so much power in a lot of iterations. She's stronger than Superman.
Okay.
And she'll beat him up.
Is it because she stayed
Yeah,
longer?
so Superman dipped when he was an infant.
Yeah.
But she was there until she was around 16.
Okay.
And then that's when it blew up. But she was kind of, in a lot of iterations, she was kind of in stasis on her way to Earth. So Clark got there younger, grew up to be an adult. And in that time, she was like frozen in time.
Are they kind of the same age? And they just like age
she's
separately?
normally younger.
Okay. Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. So
Supergirl, I mean, not
exactly.
Superwoman.
And that's where it's kind of weird, because it's like she remembers her planet more than Clark does.
Right.
But Clark understands the world more than she does. I don't know. People find her harsh, but I think it's just she grew up somewhere else.
Right.
And she's not acclimated to the way of the world versus like Kansas over here, who had like these perfect parents and like lived on this beautiful farm and ate corn every day. Actually, I don't know if he eats corn.
He looks pretty corn fed.
Right?
I mean,
that's the definition of
the
corn
body is very Midwestern.
The body's
corn-fed.
giving corn.
Yeah.
The body's giving corn.
Steak,
for sure.
potatoes, corn.
Yeah. But I did want to talk to you about the nature versus nurture thing, because that's something that's really brought up. A lot of people are wondering, are the Kryptonians by nature good people who want to do better? And that's why both Clark and Supergirl and Kara end up being like superheroes? Or is it that they've been nurtured into it? Is it that Clark was raised by good people and decided to use his things for good?
So who are Supergirl's parents?
I mean, you won't really meet them. They're dead.
They're dead. They're cousins of who we know. They're the House
Are they
of L.
first cousins? They second cousins? Twice removed?
I've never actually. That
You
is
said,
a
are
fair
they?
question.
No, they're first
I need to
cousins.
see the
They're
family
first
tree.
cousins.
They're
Clark
first
and Kara.
cousins.
Okay.
So like, sometimes one of her parents are like siblings of one of Clark's parents.
Okay.
Sometimes they're cousins of each other. It's always vague, but
Right.
they're always cousins.
Right.
They're all. It's shown that like she knew his parents a lot of times. But I couldn't tell you, like who's related to
I've
you.
actually never thought to look into the Kryptonian family tree. That's a really fair question. I've never been like, how
Well,
are
I
they cousins?
finally stumped you.
Mom
boy.
side.
Finally got us. I will say I would love to see if Supergirl's in the new Absolute Superman.
Yeah.
Because family, this new Absolute universe, family is like a big thing, and class is
Okay.
like baked into that society. So Superman is from the lowest of class. He's from laborers.
Oh,
So I'd
okay.
love to learn, like, in every other iteration, he comes from like a really stush, cushy scientist family.
Because Jor-El is a scientist on the planet that sees the writing on the wall about Krypton. He's always, or in almost all continuities, aware of the impending doom, but no one listens to him. And that's a big, morality tale of, like, we should stop what we're doing on this planet that's destroying it. And the House of L always has that distinction. So I love your nature versus nurture concept, especially since we know Zod and other Kryptonians are not inherently good and
Right.
they're causing harm. So I'm really curious curious if we explore the Phantom Zone. I'm really curious what happens in the parallel between Superman and Supergirl. And we've got some casting beyond Millie Alcock now. We've got Eve Ridley, who I'm very excited about as the little girl. It's Ruthye. I think I've always pronounced that as Ruthia, but I've never seen that name. So I'm very curious. Ruthia Mari Knoll. And then Matea Schoenaerts is Creme of the Yellow Hills, the one who does the murder. So I think that is really interesting. Now, Jor-El is the brother of Zor-El, so that makes them first cousins, right?
Okay, yeah.
I told you they had some sibling thing going on.
Wait, so let me. So, does Supergirl get the idea to become Supergirl because Superman exists?
Yeah. So
and like the branding and the color. Yeah,
it's their family crest. The S that we see with Superman, that's like their family crest.
What does the S stand for in Krypton?
What was it? Hope?
So the S standing for Hope is not original canon. We've talked a lot about like Kryptonite being radio show. We've talked about the tagline. This is another of those editions. And what I love personally is the S in David Cornsweet, James Gunn's Superman. It actually looks like a sigil because I love that Superman has the S in his chest, but it looks like Times New Roman. So I'm really excited for the S to be a sigil. And that symbol of the L stands for hope. That is the concept of. So in this new iteration, that symbol is a legit sigil as opposed to like, hey,
instead of that, but it's supposed to be his house sigil,
like your last name.
Crest.
Got it.
Yeah,
got it.
Which is
Family
not
crest.
S or it's
yeah.
L. So I don't know where they got this swooping shape. But yeah, I think even though they're from the same family, to your point, the way that Kara distinguishes herself is her own lived experience. So when she comes to Earth, she's living with her family member and he's influencing her, but she still has her own mind, and that's why it's so very different. And I love Supergirl because I do think she's edgy. She's definitely more violent than Clark is. She has a shorter temper. Is it a shorter fuse? How do you say that?
Short fuse.
Temper. Yeah,
quick-tempered.
She has a quick temper. Coy said she was feral earlier when we were in the green room.
That's been the debate of the day. Is I see feral as a positive of like if you're in a situation where you haven't been socialized and you handle things by defending your own, you're protective, you're feral, you've got an animosity. I see that as a net positive.
I mean, Tarzan was feral.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. The fact that you reached for Tarzan is why I was like, that's not the right word.
She's not because she's a fish out of water.
Yeah, she's not raised by wolves.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Monkeys,
She's from the streets.
But she's got an animosity.
She got an edge.
An animosity is like
the
a feralness.
Streets of Krypton.
See, but when you say feral, you're thinking like void of civilization is what people's mind
raised on an asteroid.
Weasel.
Weasel.
Yeah,
right?
Weasel's
There's an animal quality.
But feral
to it.
as compared to Clark.
I just think that Clark is nice.
Okay.
And she's not nice.
All right.
You know what I mean?
But I think that's why the story needs to be told, right? Like,
I agree.
We know Superman. We know the lore, the richness, and I feel like Supergirl is another way to grow out the greater superhero community. Like, what if Superman didn't immediately find Ma and Pa Kent? What if you were stuck in this situation? What if you knew your family and they were lost to you later on? And this particular story, this movie is inspired by a comic that not only has those elements, but expands the greater cosmic universe. So just like we got Creature Commandos, which kicks off the DCU in such a bold way, I love that following Superman, the next theatrical experience is Supergirl, where we're going to have a largely terrestrial Superman. We got Daily Planet, we've got Justice, we've got all the things that we're somewhat familiar with, and then we go to space, and we have a cosmic, and I love that those feel like a pair. I love that we get the kinship between Supergirl and Superman. Even the title, like Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, feels so forward-facing.
Well, no, I think of DC as like everything's it takes place on Earth.
It takes place on Earth.
Yeah,
this
it's
will
like
not really be on Earth.
It's a road trip to the cosmos.
Somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny you feel that way because I feel like DC is about like people learning that there's more to Earth. So I really feel like the DCU is going to tackle that more, where we find out like we have humanity, we have our own struggles, but there's so much more that we need to consider, and that becomes an issue. Like, how do we come together when there's a bigger threat?
Yeah.
But
Any
that's
questions?
all we got.
I mean, I think that I'll sit tight until the movie comes out.
Until the movie comes out. That's all we know.
But your excitement is palpable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I honestly, this is the first time we're really seeing Supergirl, especially on this scale.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be very fire.
Cool.
Now that you know me, you're going to have to watch it.
All right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, I have to watch it all.
Yeah, exactly.
I get to.
You get to watch it all.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, it's a good time.
I will keep that in mind.
We got a little game for you.
For me?
For you.
Okay.
So you can learn a little bit more about the characters.
Okay.
We're going to call it Who's Your Daddy?
Okay. All right.
So what we're going to do...
I like this where it's headed.
I knew you'd appreciate it. So what we're going to do is both Coy and I are going to name characters. We're going to go through cons and pros. I'm going to do the cons. He's going to do the pros. And then you're going to tell us whether or not you want them to be your daddy.
Okay.
Okay, and these are all famous comic book fathers.
Okay.
This is
like the biggest. I'd like argue amongst the most. Like you should recognize these characters.
It won't be anyone that you've never heard of before.
Okay, and so I'm picking them at the end.
Yeah,
you'll pick you'll be like, this is my daddy.
Okay,
but also give us like your instincts. Like give us a little bit of how you're feeling with each one.
All right.
All right.
Let's hear it.
Batman.
I know him.
You've heard of him? Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
I felt that there was a little spice on that. I feel like there's already a little inclination.
You're not starting off strong. It's clearly a bias.
All right. So a benefit, a pro. He's not afraid of a big family. Loves kids, very welcoming, big family guy. Secondly, financially secure. Would not be worried about where supper's coming from. Very contented family man, and maybe the coolest of all, has a cave. You get access to a cave, pretty great real estate, a lot of beautiful property and a cave, a lot of benefits.
All right, cons. He has a cave, which means he has rats.
And bats.
And bats all up in the crib.
Yeah.
If that's something.
Keeping that in mind.
Even though he's rich, he's putting you to work immediately. Okay? You're in danger.
Oh, I see. Am I fighting?
You're fighting. You're not just going to be his son. He's going to make you work.
But you're learning how to fight.
You're learning, but if you're rich, why do you need to learn how to fight? Just get a bodyguard. But he's going to make you learn. Okay? And you gave 3?
I gave 3.
Okay, and then finally for a con, I would say because he is a full-time billionaire, like entrepreneur, and then at night he's Batman, he's tired. You know, he's not gonna have time to play catch with you. He's only gonna have time to like fight and send you off to your death. And actually, finally, I know this is 4, you can put one more pro. He will not avenge you if somebody washes you up.
Okay.
You feel me? Like,
I've seen it. Yeah.
You've seen it, yeah. So, like, you're going to be a little tight. If you want revenge, as vengeful as he looks, he's not going to get that for you, you know? You could get one more pro, to be fair.
Okay, so we've talked about the job security. We've talked about, the location, the real estate. We've covered the fact, I'm going to say a benefit is you never have to worry about any chores because you have a loyal butler. And that's pretty great. So money and no chores.
I know him.
Wow, labor is crazy. Bringing the labor force is a crazy pro to bring out.
I'm just saying there's
no
perks.
Value judgments here.
You're right. You're right.
Also, like butler's a noble profession. Like every butler I know is in like high regard. Like I think Alfred is like such.
Alfred ain't doing that work. You ain't never see Alfred do no work.
I've never met
how
Alfred
many butlers does he know?
I'm assuming he has a staff. I will say that. But let's move on.
The Magic Castle has a fleet of awesome butlers. All right. So next, we're gonna go with an icon of dadhood. We got to talk about the man himself, the Superman.
Okay.
So pro, no long transportation. You get wherever you want. You fly there pretty quick. Any trip like that. He's always down to play catch. Those two tie together. He's, always airborne, down to have those times. And third pro, very well read because he's so well written. Very intelligent man, can teach you a lot. Very worldly. And in fact, timely and worldly.
Well, let's get into the cons because I got a bunch. I would not want Superman to be my father. The first one is his standards are unreasonably high. Okay, you can't even swear. You're putting your money in the swear jar, and he can hear and see everything you do. You can't even get like a squeeze up in the room. Can't even creep that in. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do get what you're saying.
Number 2 is he's normally worried about everyone in the world, so he'll never have time to focus on you.
Oh.
And that's, I know. Jonathan would agree. He gets sad about it too.
Yeah, I do like to be the center of attention sometimes.
Yeah. And the third one is, I know you're an LA guy now.
Yeah.
You're going to live on the farm.
Well, at least for part of, yeah.
For a long time, you're going to be on that farm. It's all right, but it's not like.
But he doesn't, I wouldn't live in Metropolis?
No. He does as an adult. You got to grow up on that farm. Clark is really big on like raising his children on that farm.
Could I be bi-coastal?
No.
If one of the farms is next to
you got to be
river,
hidden because you.
All right.
What I hear is a work ethic and farm to table meals. That's what I hear.
You're letting the guy from Boston tell you it's a good place to live. I don't know how credible that is.
Okay.
But let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Flash. Have you heard of the Flash?
I know who the Flash is. Yeah.
There are many iterations of the Flash. We could keep it general, right? Because this is broad.
Do you want to start first? I started last. I want to be
no. But I think pros should always go first.
Just want to make sure I'm not.
Yeah.
So Wally West, no picking favorites. My favorite Flash.
Okay.
Great sense of humor. Will always be there for you, literally in a flash. If you ask nicely, he can take you through time and space. Do you want to see a dinosaur, kid? You got a dinosaur. It's pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, that's.
You ain't never won no dinosaur.
I love Jurassic Park.
Oh, for real?
If Jurassic
I sense that about you.
If Jurassic World were real, I would go there.
Would you? Okay.
It has some issues, obviously.
Right.
And I would argue of the Flash, doting friend, so he'd like share his super speed with you, so you get access to the Speed Force yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm
Why
glad
does he suck?
I'm glad he brought up the past and the future because you could get stuck there. And so now you want to be cute, go see some dinosaurs. Now look where you stuck in Jurassic Park, the original. Okay.
Okay.
He also has the pettiest arch nemesis of all time.
Which is who?
Reverse Flash. So
Reverse Flash?
Yes, I mean obviously, right? It's reverse. That's how petty he is.
So like backwards?
Yeah, but honestly, yes, like that's how petty he is. He's like, I'm not even gonna get a new name.
Right.
Okay, I'm the reverse of everything you are.
Okay.
And so just out of pure spite, there'll be times that you're having an amazing day and he ruins your day because he don't bang with your dad.
Okay.
Right? So imagine like you're having a birthday cake and Reverse Flash comes and smashes it in your face, throws it on the floor.
Okay.
It's like he'll do stuff like that
Okay.
at all times. What was the third thing you said too?
I was talking about how he's always there for you. Did you cover that?
Oh yeah. Why did he say that? He's never present. Because he's never present. So he's always going to be running in and out. He got work with the Justice League. Like, he's never going to be present.
Okay.
So that's going to be a big thing too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna switch over to Aquaman.
Oh, okay.
Aquaman is able to speak to any animal. So we're talking whales as friends, dolphins as friends. You just got a whole kingdom. And he is a king. So you got a whole kingdom. You are now in the monarchy. Not the worst
I'd be
thing.
a prince. I'd be
Not
a
the
little
worst.
You'd be a prince, yeah.
So that's pretty great. And third thing, the world is what, like 78% ocean. So you've got the entire planet now.
Yeah.
Because you've got the land already.
Okay.
Add the ocean to that. Pretty great gig.
Okay.
Khan, you hate the ocean.
I do hate the ocean.
Why? You hate the ocean.
I do hate the ocean.
It's Aquaman. What do you want me to
That's
leave?
it. I know. I
me.
was like, I can't wait to remind him.
Yeah.
He hates
I
the
didn't
ocean.
forget.
Yeah. So there's that.
I think about it every day of my life.
Yeah. Do you like seafood?
Sometimes.
Well, you'd have to give it up. You can't eat seafood.
I can't eat shrimp.
You can't eat
Cocktail.
shrimp. Not even shrimp. And they're like roaches, right? Of the water.
Yeah, I don't get shrimp. I don't get it.
Really? Yeah, they're roaches of the water.
Okay, well, I do like a shrimp cocktail.
Well, you can't eat any more.
That's good to think about.
Put away the marinara. You're done.
Marinara.
What is in a shrimp cocktail?
It's like a horseradish.
Cocktail sauce?
Yeah,
Isn't it
cocktail
literally
sauce.
called cocktail
No.
sauce?
It's a marinara with a little horseradish. It gives a little
Okay.
kick.
I've
I don't
actually
eat it
never.
either.
I don't eat seafood.
I don't eat
So
shrimp.
I don't know what I always. I always figured it was pizza sauce that they were eating it.
I love that you never like investigated. You're like, I assume that's pizza sauce.
No, a
So it
shrimp
looked-
pizza.
I think it's literally called cocktail sauce, but I don't eat shrimp. So is it?
No, I mean it's like a tomato sauce with horseradish, so it's like spicier.
And then finally, all your furniture and stuff would get wet. You could never wear velvet again, like all that stuff, or velour, anything.
I like this idea that you think that I'm like,
You're the
when
fanciest
you
guy
don't
I
see
know.
Me, I'm like covered in velour and velvet.
He's the fanciest.
Okay,
Yeah.
I always pictured you in your living room with like a fireplace and a highball and like
Pajamas
the
with a
most
smoke.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So you don't ruin that for me. So
Well, yeah, I will keep my mouth shut then because that's not how.
I love that you're
it's
describing
happening.
Bruce Wayne. Like I just pictured.
Yeah,
you.
I feel like if you think I'm just Bruce Wayne,
this is
yeah.
an excellent year, like and then we'll finish off with Green Arrow.
Green Arrow, lots and lots of money, a recurring theme here. I think it's very important. The industries that he runs, a little bit more maybe climate friendly than Bruce Wayne, but like,
Okay.
he's got a lot of money. Maybe the best facial hair, Green Arrow. Not to be biased, but perhaps the best facial hair in comics. Also, you'll learn so many athletic skills because this is a standard human keeping up with gods. He is able to shoot an arrow so well. That is discipline, that is athleticism, plus all that money. I'm just saying he's got a lot going.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of it is the complex that would come with being the son of Green Arrow, right? He's always competing with Batman and Bruce Wayne, and you're going to get the butt of that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? He's not always rich.
That's true. That's true.
So
Sometimes
you may
he
be
has failed
poor.
this city.
You may lose the money. He's not great.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
finally, if he does force you, which he probably will, to also be his sidekick, his gear is terrible. So now you're running around here looking like Peter Pan. And when you, at least with the Bat family, like the Robins have a little bit more autonomy. They look great. Yeah, so you're going to be in green. It's not, and you're going to be shooting an arrow. Who wants to do that?
You also, and I don't know if we can say this, but it's on HBO, might get hooked on gear because Speedy did.
Oh.
Make it hooked on. Oh my God. That's like a dark turn. All right, so we'll go through the candidates, not the pros and cons, but I'm just going to list them. Take a beat.
Yeah.
And then you tell me who you're thinking of.
Okay.
So, first one was Batman. We had Superman. We had The Flash, Aquaman, and Green Arrow.
Okay.
Those are your 5 choices.
I'm going to cut out Green Arrow because he's the one I know the least about.
And that's fine.
That's
And
how it's gonna
he's
work.
used to being the last one picked.
Okay,
So no
fair.
trap. Yeah.
Aquaman, you all know, I hate the ocean.
Yeah, let's get him
That's
out.
like the stuff under there is like scarier than outer space as far as I'm concerned. It's alien shit down there.
And
Yeah.
And this he confirms that there is like alien type shit.
Yeah,
down there.
exactly. So
Yeah.
there you go. The Flash, I don't like running. And, so it just feels like gives me a jogging vibe all the time. Superman, I feel like Superman and Batman are the ones I would feel the most comfortable around. Superman, as you say, the standards are really high. Batman, I feel like not gonna love going to see movies with me.
That's a good point.
You could build a theater at home.
You don't know how triggered he's gonna be.
That's true.
He's
He
got
can just
a
see a
lot of
projection
baggage.
and be like, no.
However, I think I'm gonna go with Batman because the cons are kind of outweighed by the pros.
And that's why he's got a whole bunch of
immense
Robins.
wealth.
I think would
Yeah,
I
and
honestly
cars
pick
and
him.
cars.
I'd honestly pick him. Personally, I was just talking shit, but
Yeah.
I think of all of them, Batman is actually a really good father.
Okay.
And the best like comic books and stuff like that show that he's a good like actually nurturing father. So that I think you chose the right one.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I were choosing my mother, it'd be Catwoman.
When next time on, choose your mommy.
We'll tackle that Oedipus complex later.
The whip has a lot of context.
Yeah.
That was really fun because I love that your exposure to these characters is different. So hearing about like what these choices are versus
Yeah.
our experience.
Yeah.
Well, that was amazing. And thank you all for joining us for DC Studio Showcase here. This was incredible. We had a stacked episode
did.
today. So we stream every other Friday on Max and on Max's YouTube, or you can listen to us anywhere that podcasts are available. So until next time, I'll see you all later. I'm nerd commentator Frankie Smith.
I'm Tyler Coates.
I'm comic correspondent Coy Jandro, and I hope to read some comics.